Hello and welcome to Ashit Shailene Ministries. Today's lesson we are going to talk about Mary and Martha, which I think is a very common lesson, but it's a very good lesson. And so we're just going to jump right in and get started. I pray that God opens your eyes and your ears and your heart to the message today that He has laid on my heart to share with each of you. So we are going to be in Luke chapter 10, verse 38 through 42, and I'm going to be reading out of the NIV version for this. And it says, as Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. And she had a sister called Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me. Martha, Martha, the Lord answered, you are worried and upset about many things, but only one thing is needed. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. So, as you know, Jesus is traveling and he goes through the city, him and the disciples. And when he gets to this village, Martha has offered up her home for hospitality to Jesus and to the disciples. And when Jesus arrives, Martha is hustling around and trying to prepare the food and get everything in order. And Mary stops and she sits at the feet of Jesus and she takes it in and she listens to him, and she is invested in this moment with Christ that she has. And so in this, Martha gets frustrated, and Martha says to the Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me. I think we can find ourselves in Martha's position, and we can find ourselves in Mary's position too. But I feel like Martha's position and the feeling that she has, we probably have felt a little more. We may have felt this way with our own siblings, with our children, with our spouses, with our friends, just different people, maybe even our coworkers. So with that feeling of, well, why am I left to do the work by myself? And followed up by asking our parents, hey, can you get our siblings to help? We may even ask our spouse, hey, can you get the kids to help me out? And we may even go to God and say, God, can you please get my spouse to help me? I need help. I cannot do it on my own. I'm tired of doing it on my own. And so the Lord responds to Martha, 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 you are worried and upset about many things, but one thing is needed. And Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. As you know, I like to read different translations when I'm studying the Bible. And so I'm going to break down verse 41 in part 1 and part 2 and in the different translations. And so in the NIV, the part 1 of verse 41 says, you are worried and upset about many things. In the Jewish Bible, Jesus tells Martha, you are fretting and worrying about so many things. In the King James, we have, thou art careful and troubled about many things. And then in the ESV, it says, you are anxious and troubled about many things. And then in the different translations, let's take a look at the Lord's response. In the NIV, he says, but only one thing is needed. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. And in the Jewish Bible, it reads, but there is only one thing that is essential. Miriam has chosen the right thing, and it won't be taken away from her. The King James tells us that, but one thing is needful. And Mary hath chosen that good part, which shall not be taken away from her. And then in the English Standard Version, says, "Oh, but one thing is necessary, and Mary has chosen the good portion, which will not be taken away from her." All the words used in the translations for what the Lord sees in Martha are things that we can feel and get lost in if we're not careful. Worrying, being troubled, fretting, being anxious. And now it tells us that Mary chose. So the Lord tells us now that Mary chose the one thing. The one thing needed, the one thing that's necessary, the one thing that's needful, the one thing that is essential. That is what Mary chose. The good portion, the good part. What is better, what is right, and it will not be taken away from her. Mary chose to seek Christ. Mary chose to listen. Mary chose to have that relationship. And as I read this, especially in the different translations, what really stood out to me about this was Mary chose peace in all of this. And the Bible tells us many times not to worry and to seek Christ. And she was seeking him. And Martha was caught up in everything around her and everything that was going on, that she was missing her God encounter. And we can have our encounters with God at any moment in our life, and unexpectedly too. And I don't want us to be so caught up in the things that we're doing that we miss these God encounters. And so I do believe that God is calling us to slow down, to have these Mary moments, and to focus on your relationship with Christ. And so we have to pay attention, because God has so much that he wants to reveal to us. And if we get caught up in the day-to-day messes of life, we're gonna miss those important things that God is trying to reveal to us. Now, usually Martha is looked at as the one who made the poor choice, or who is the bad one. And I'm gonna use the word bad loosely. She wasn't. Let's not take away that Martha was serving. And Martha was serving others. She was serving Christ, and it is important for us to serve. But here's the thing. We don't want to get so caught up in serving others that we forget to slow down and take in what God is doing and what he's speaking to us. Sometimes we can overcommit ourselves to things and miss the bigger picture. I'm sure Martha was excited to have Jesus coming and to have him in her home, and that she had the opportunity to serve him. She got caught up in it, though. I'm sure that she saw this moment and she wanted to serve a feast, and she wanted to serve the best of the best that she knew how to make and what she had. When in reality, Jesus would have been so happy and so thankful with a bowl of soup and a piece of bread, and to spend quality time with both Mary and Martha, and telling them about God, and connecting with them, and having that relationship with them. So, don't allow our over-the-top expectations to miss an encounter with Christ. Those over-the-top expectations cause us to worry. They cause us to fret. They cause us to be troubled. They cause us to be anxious. Allow yourself to breathe. Allow yourself to seek God and soak that in and have that peace. I found this great article online through Crosswalk, and it was written by Jana Wright. And she made some really good points, and so I wanted to pull some of those out. And she talks about 5 lessons that we can learn from Mary and Martha. 1, true hospitality is always in style, is her first point. And she says, welcoming people into your home is a gift worth sharing. Now, last week we spoke of being a Titus woman. And part of being a Titus woman is teaching the younger women to be godly, teaching them how to love their husbands, teaching them how to love their how to love their children. And part of that is opening up to them and being truthful with them. And so when we open our home in hospitality, especially to other women, that allows us to contribute to being a Titus woman. So whether the house is pristine and decorated to perfection or not, because true hospitality wraps a person up in a grace hug and makes them feel special. When we spend time with people, when we fellowship with them, especially one-on-one or in really small groups, that we go out of our way to include an individual or individuals, it makes them feel special. And so what does that time with them look like with you? Are you there being over the top and you're so busy that ultimately your guests are sitting, waiting while you're hustling around trying to finish stuff up? Maybe they're spending time with your children or with your animals, or they're talking to your spouse or watching TV or something, versus you being there and being connected with them and fellowshipping with them and talking to them and having a more genuine quality moment. Number 2, comparison only breeds anxiety and discontent. This is where discontent begins, when Martha compares her current life to someone else's and realizes she's holding the short straw. A short straw that we oftentimes create ourselves with our over-the-top expectations that cause us to worry and fret and be anxious when they don't turn out the way that we want them to. One thing that we also have to keep in mind with comparison is we never see the full story. We build our comparison off of a snapshot of someone's life, and it's the little bit that we get to see, that little bit that they allow us to see. So try not to compare yourself. Don't compare yourself, because it's gonna create anxiety and it's gonna create discontent. Number 3, when you're struggling, go to the best source first. Martha was smart. When she got disgruntled, when she got disgruntled by the unfairness of her situation, she wasted no time. She knows exactly who can fix things. Martha marches up to Jesus, who is the highest authority in the room, and she commands Jesus, "Make my sister help me." There is something to be said for knowing who can help you. And sometimes we're tempted to share our problems with others, whether it be through asking for prayer requests, posting stuff on social media, talking to our mom about it, or our best friend, when the wisest thing to do is to approach the one who can actually fix things first. So Martha knew what she was doing when she went to Jesus and said, "Make her help me." When we're in that place, we need to go to Jesus and we need to ask for help. 4, you can tell Jesus anything. Notice that when Martha gave Jesus the command, he didn't rebuke her for her words. And Jesus accepts Martha where she is, as she is, and listens to her tirade without batting an eye. Jesus listens to us that way too. He doesn't get miffed or offended when you come to him in the middle of an emotional upheaval. He doesn't mind if you tell him exactly how you're feeling, and he adores you and longs to hear about everything you face. Jesus is your perfect friend, approachable, loving, and eager to listen. So remember, you can go to Jesus, and you should go to Jesus first. 5, the path to peace begins with one thing. After Martha had her moment and said what she wanted and what she felt she needed to say, Jesus offers her the path to peace. Luke 10:41, Martha, you were worried and troubled about many things, But one thing is needed, and Mary has chosen that good part, which will not be taken away from her. Jesus reminded Martha, and he reminds us too, that what we should be concerned with, what we need to focus on, is our relationship with him. When we concentrate on Jesus first, we discover that we never truly are alone or without help. Remember, Hebrews 5 tells us to keep our lives free from the love of money and be content with what you have, because God has said, "Never will I leave you or forsake you." 2 Corinthians 9:8 reminds us that God is able to make all grace abound to you, so that in all things, at all times, having all that you need, you will abound in every good work. And John 14:27 reminds us, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you, and I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid." He gives us peace, and he wants us to have peace, and he tells us, like, don't worry, don't let your heart be troubled, don't get caught up in doing so many things. Allow this to be the kinds of truth that keep us calm in even the busiest seasons of life and in serving. So, here's to throwing the door open, wide open, and may we find the joy of inviting people in, and may we cling to the peace of the one thing in the middle of the ordinary and crazy life. As we close out today, I want to ask you 3 questions to focus on this week. 1, do you have your priorities in order? 2, like Martha, are you worried or anxious about many things? Or are you like Mary and focused on listening to Jesus and spending time in his presence? And then 3, have you put devotion to Christ and his word first? Or are you more concerned about doing your good deeds? I don't want to take away the importance of doing good deeds and serving, because they are important and we should do them. However, they should not take away from our relationship with Christ. And so if you find yourself serving and you're at a place where you're getting burned out and you feel like that you're not able to feed your spirit the word of God, and you notice that you're so busy serving in church and you're overcommitted here and overcommitted there and everything, that you're setting God aside to serve and do your good deeds, you need to pray about that, because we should seek God first. And our relationship with Christ should not be set aside. Our relationship with God should not be set aside to serve others. So keep your serving at a healthy place for you, that you are still able to maintain your relationship with Christ, that you are able to not be overwhelmed, to not be worried, to not be anxious, and to be fretting and everything. If you are, odds are you chose to draw the short straw. I love you all. I will see you next time, and y'all have a blessed day.